looky here. Good day, folks. Today I'm going to make a whiplash, and this is the typical 6-strand whiplash. It's also roughly about 6 feet, and I'm often asked how these are made, so I'm going to show you in steps how these are made, and if you follow these steps you should be able to make your own. Let's get started and see how we make out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a hide. This is about 1.5 ounce, 1 3/4 ounce tanned deer hide. So I lay it out on the floor, or I lay it out on the table, or whatever, and then I get a pattern. This is a typical pattern, and these patterns can be all made in different lengths and widths. This is my favorite pattern. You can see I have it laid out so that it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and I just made it out of Bristol board. So what I like to do now is, I know that this is going to be the very top of the lash, so I like to pick a fairly straight piece for that, straight section. So I would just lay that on the leather and trace it. I just use a pin or something that marks it very well. I think I'll go this way on that one. So you just lay it down on the edge there like that. If you want it a little wider you can, or a little narrower, or whatever. You can just make your pattern that way. And just take your pin and draw along the edge and go around the hide. Anytime you come to these little holes, you can just steer around them. Keep moving your pattern until you can see it's all cut out. And since this is going to be a 6-strand, I mark it and cut it in 2, and then I'm going to mark each side with 2 lines so I can have 3 strands on each side. So that's basically what it looks like when it's cut out of the leather, complete with the turns. But again, when these are cut up into strands, you'll not notice it in the whiplash. So now I took this one here and I marked it down the center. And then I cut it completely down in the center. So now what I'm going to do is use a piece of polyethylene board, cotton board. So now what I'm going to do is just simply mark this and divide that off in 3 equal widths of the lash, the strands. very important that you get this right, because it has to be equal on all 3 strands. And just mark it down like that. Be very careful when you come into corners and turns that you maintain that equalness. Just keep doing that until you get right to the very end. It's a little easier with an H strand because you can just do it in half. So you have the first one in the middle to divide it in 2 halves, and then each of the halves will be divided in 2, and then each of those 2 will be divided in 2 for a total of 8 strands. 6th strand is the normal. You can do it without marking it if you're good at judging where you're cutting. I tend to mark mine so I can make sure that the strands are of equal width. Also, as I've gotten closer to the end here, I would have run the strands through a shaver, a leather shaver, much like this one here. This is a very old one. What it simply does is, when you tighten down the roller, it'll shave your strand down a little bit more so that it's a little thinner and makes the whiplash have a nice finished tapered look to it. So like that. These come in many different shapes and styles. This is kind of like the one I use. You can see that when it gets close to the end, the strands are very narrow, so you have to really be careful that you make those widths equal distance. So there. So now we have those marked out. And now we're going to cut them out. You can see I previously cut these 3 strands out earlier. Right down to the edge. Now you can use scissors, you can use a leather cutter. I tend to use this board, plastic board. Doesn't hurt my knife. I tend to use a very good quality hard knife that sharpened to 4000 grit. I also use a little leather piece wrapped around my finger because this is how I hold it. And it's hard on the bare finger, so by wrapping a piece of leather around it, not quite so hard. So I'll insert it and then I just pull along the line. Be very careful with doing this and make sure you're as accurate as you can possibly be. Keep working your leather back and forth so that it's coming in straight for the knife. Take your time. Don't rush through this step. You'll do a much better job when all is said and done. You see now that the strands are getting narrower. So now you have to be a bit more accurate.